Well, good day. Good day, good day, good day. We have quite a bit to discuss today. And how I want to start these weekly sessions out each time is by putting out a meditation. And that meditation is going to be very simple. And it's a mantra that I've lived by for many, many moons, and successfully so. It's always, always served me well. Okay? So my intention is to enlarge thought and achieve comprehension and unity, and not to further divide. May I be impactful and not further divide. So that's how I will start off each session. May I be impactful and not further divide. We have some very volatile subjects to discuss today, and I'm taking on 3 different subjects as I committed. We're going to begin with the less intense and less complex, and then we will conclude today's session on Breonna Taylor. Okay. So we're going to jump in, and in the discussion on Breonna Taylor, there are layers. Those layers entail millennials, generational platforms for a more perfect union, the BLM, the Black Lives Matter movement, voting and a black contract. Yes, we will touch upon Ice Cube. Bedros, Keuilian, I'm not sure if I've got his name correct, but Keuilian. And I mentioned to you all that I would include some commentary about his recent post, okay, and his disposition and his rational. Yes, we're going to get to all that, okay? Black America, hero worship, endless forgiveness, emotional intelligence in politics, religion and government. And you're probably wondering now, how is Tigress going to be able to include all these things? Oh, I am. Because they're all correlated, both positively and negatively. And it is not enough for us to have a working knowledge in just one of these areas and be able to succeed as a population. And you'll recall that the population that I'm focused on today is Black America, or diasporan Africans that landed involuntarily in America, and the generations that have come therefrom. Okay? I'm speaking in this tone because researching these matters is inseparably emotionally entangling. And whereas you generally know me to be hyper emotional intelligent, as most of you associate to my science background, I am still yet human. And my biggest concern emotionally here, before, of course, this is taken out of context, because I can have this entire conversation without emotions coming full circle or rearing their volatile head. My biggest concern is, again, not to further divide and to be impactful, because some of the things that I will discuss with you may be discouraging for those of you who have not yet become enlightened. And here's a caveat, even for those of you who have become enlightened, but you lack sufficient knowledge in all of these areas that are inseparably related to our ultimate goal of a more perfect union, and more so for Black equity, Black economic legacy and viability, and Black human and otherwise legal rights. Okay? All right, so here we go. And I'm here with you for 1 hour and a half, as I have committed. This one had to be this full because of everything that's going on. And we really need to, I've sat back, even though I've talked, and you all who have been in my company, if you've been to any of the events, any of the protests for which I was either an organizer or an ombudsman, and for those of you who are not familiar with the term, and again, it is not ever my intention to be condescending, nor to attempt, nor insult someone's intelligence, nor to demean, nor to make you feel somehow less than or no value to the Black empowerment movement, whether you don't share the same education as I do, or the same experience, or the same interdisciplinary knowledge, or the same parenting and upbringing. It doesn't matter. I want you in the fold. So you may hear me sometimes when we're having I'm being hood and colloquial. And yes, oftentimes any of our beautiful Black people who would participate in a minstrel show, and this is not a MENSTRUAL show, this is a MINSTREL show. And you've heard me use the term because for some, when we speak to one another, they need to hear exactly how it appears. Now, mind you, I am very mindful not to use my words to tear down beautiful Black people intentionally. So this is the reason why I am going through further effort to explain my disposition and explain the context from which I speak. I love you. Okay? All right. So, here we go. I've got notes on top of notes. So if you see me looking down, I've actually got the iPad over here with my saved files and websites. I'm going to share those with you as well. Those that are, you know that I prefer the most reputable, verifiable resources, right? Okay, references, if you will, right? So I will include those. I do have, I do have some websites that I have bookmarked that are not necessarily verifiable, but I just want to make some commentary on it. I just want you to be aware. And if you are not aware, then please allow me to make you aware. Please join me for this entire hour and a half, okay? I don't think that a game is coming on until around 6 o'clock. This is another reason why I've chosen 4 o'clock. Now, I know that some games come on at 1. kickoff, from what I remember, because I don't watch it anymore. And I love sports, but I love beautiful Black men and their neurological and brain health much more. And I'm glad that it has done a great deal of bringing some of our beautiful Black men out of impoverished generations and being able to break a curse, quote unquote. But at what cost? At what cost? So it is my choice not to watch it. And the irony is that as we get older and we're more resolved and we make our decisions and we have children, it's amazing and very refreshing the new viewpoints that you assume. I wouldn't want my son out on the football field. That enough signifies exactly how I feel. And those of you who know my relationship with my son, you know exactly how much I love Asa. And so when I say that I would not give him permission to play football, that should tell you everything you need to know. I am not thereby trying to denigrate anyone that has chosen that avenue, albeit a parent who has allowed their child to play. You may make different decisions based on different information, a different set of facts that you're working with. For our set of facts, that's not going to work. Now, if he chooses as he gets older, that will be a totally different dynamic. And I'm hoping that I am impactful enough in his life that he will make wise decisions. Equally, this is on topic, equally, this is how I come to you. Not as a mother, rather as an ombudsman. And so this is where we go with the definition of ombudsman. It is someone who is not necessarily a licensed attorney, but has a good working and more often an efficacy in understanding the language of law. Statutes, ordinances, treaties, policy, administrative dynamics and paradigms, okay? And so I have served in that capacity for many of civil rights organizations, literacy organizations, civic organizations, albeit on a university campus or privately established by citizens who are not necessarily associated or students of a university, okay? So this is the nature that I come to you. And I would always start with the preface when informing the members of the organization or the decision makers seated with the board of directors, right? Or the executive board. I would explain to them that the information that I give you is not to instill fear, nor is it to discourage. It is simply and straightly to ensure that you are sufficiently informed so that you can make your decisions. Because I would pull myself out of the decision-making process, except exclusively where, of course, I provide sufficient information or a link thereto, if you will. Okay. All right. So we're at 18 minutes. Let me do the other preface that I said I would do each time. All right. So my name is Tigress Sydney Acute McDaniel. I am 43. I am a scientist. I am also an economist. And I am a student of law. I am a single parent. I self-identify, of course, as beautifully African American, Black, diasporan of Haitian and Native American Cherokee descent. Okay. I have a bachelor's degree in agricultural education and environmental science with a specialization in swan husbandry and wetland bioremediation. I have an MS degree in agricultural economics and rural development with the same specialization from my undergrad program. I am currently a PhD candidate, which means that I have completed all coursework and examinations to be conferred to candidacy, and I have only my dissertation to defend, my final defense to undertake before achieving and obtaining, those words are synonymous, right? My doctoral degree in energy and environmental systems and economics. Again, with the same specialization, with a focus, of course, with an economic approach and correcting negative externalities. All right. All right. I am currently working on providing a little more explanation in written form so that also stays pinned to my social media platforms. So that can be kind of like the first thing, this, not so much the bio, because for someone like myself, the bio can get, voluminous. And I just want you to have the key things. And I feel like those things, I really do. I think they signify enough about me to show my disposition and show my my unmitigated, unwavering devotion to Black empowerment. Okay. All right. So here we go. I did that. What? 2 minutes? Okay. Here we go. All right, y'all. Let's get heavy and let's get into it. Let's get real. So let's put on our big girl underwear and our big boy drawers. Okay. And let's get into this, please. All right. So we're going to tackle the ridiculousness of the Obama birther conspiracy theory, right? Okay. Now, I told you once before that I wasn't going to discuss this matter. Reason being is because I don't like discussing nonsense. I don't like discussing overly sensationalized BS, basically. And you see that I've been under attack. I have had my share of libel posted about me, published in the Charlotte Observer, the News and Record, and many other news publications, albeit traditional or non-traditional media. I'm sure there's been bloggers. I've seen I've seen two bloggers that have ripped, articles out of the sky and reposted it without even verifying the truth of the information. So I know what it feels like to have to go through and be the target of a conspiracy theory. All right. And you generally know how I feel about conspiracy theories. Friends, we have so much more to worry about. Okay. Especially where the conspiracy theories are just a complete load of right? Okay. And then the conspiracy theories upon which and I say you, plural, just, the public would assign some conspiracy theory to it based on something that is actually occurring. You've heard me tell you before that actually does not qualify as a conspiracy theory. If it's true and it's actually happening, then it's reality. It's no longer a theory, and it's definitely not a conspiracy at this point. The steps in the furtherance of whatever they're doing that we think that they're conspiring, if that's already been done, it is no longer a conspiracy by definition, okay? All right. So Good gracious. Now, I'm not going to get into the kind of the debate on whether or not Obama was an excellent president and whether or not he did enough for us. I'm not going to do that today. Oftentimes that does become part of the conversation when we discuss anything about Obama, but I'm not going to do that. I just want you to see, because there were individuals who were seeking, and because there was a document going around, court record, or purportedly a court record going around that was on topic to, Obama being sued, and on this same issue of whether or not he was a citizen. Okay, so let's do this number one. Okay, turn with me. If you're, you're 9 times out of 10, you're on a device, albeit a computer. If you have the ability to do so, I'm going to ask that you go to one of your web browsers, okay? And we're going to pull up the qualifications. So you can just type that in, to be president, okay? And generally the first web source will be usa.gov. You know how I feel about some of this stuff. I want you to go to Congress. Let's go to Congress. So that should be 4 down, okay? Qualifications for the presidency. Okay. Article 2, Section 1, Clause 5, the Constitution annotated. No person except a natural-born citizen or a citizen of the United States at the time of the adoption of this Constitution shall be eligible to the office of president. Neither shall any person be eligible to that office who shall not have attained to the age of 35 years and been 14 years a resident within the United States. Okay, so natural born citizen or a citizen of the United States. So the distinction there is that they can either be a citizen by birth, right? Or they can be naturalized by the formal immigration process, right? Okay. All right. So when we consider just the clause itself, you should hear just how ridiculous the notion is that somehow Obama is not eligible to have been president on the basis of some citizenship issue, okay? Number one, it is very likely that this would have been resolved many years ago if there was a valid immigration issue that Obama was facing, okay? We know that we all generally know that you can have dual citizenship. So you can have citizenship in a country in Africa, and you can have citizenship here in America. You can have that simultaneously. That's what we know what dual means, right? Okay. And this is someone who has served in our Senate, okay? And that was not at issue then. This is someone who has also passed the bar. He is a licensed attorney, right? So let's make sure we have this clear too. So, I don't know where he was first licensed. I would be speaking out of turn. So I'm going to see if I can pull it up really quickly, because I think it would add to our understanding here. So this is just going to be wrapped up real quick. And at the end of it, we can all come together and just say that stuff is dumb. And we're not going to talk about that no more, because even if it is at this point, if he's from planet Pluto at this point, to have a discussion is pointless, because he served 2 terms. He served as president. It's done. So whatever the debate is It is completely moot. Completely. There's no way to go back in time to take it back. There are no criminal implications that I have seen in any statute. There is no claim for relief available for one person, nor a state, nor the country. If this were to have been allowed to happen, allowed for him to actually serve as president for 2 terms, mind you, it would be a moot issue in a court of law. So it would be moot legally and it would be moot colloquially. Okay? So we're going to mute it, M-U-T-E, after this. Okay. Licensed attorney in what state first? If you know and you're joining me, please let me know. Remember, this is not a one woman show at all. Okay. Oh, Lord. Oh, my God. And now they're trying to say that Michelle Obama was this. Okay, yeah, oh, my God. Give me a second. Give me 1 second here. Okay, and I know better. I actually looked this up because I was looking for his initial state of being licensed, which I believe is Illinois. Okay. Let's see. But it doesn't necessarily have to be the same state where someone actually obtained their degree, their Juris Doctor degree, just so you're aware, okay? So that's why I looked that up. But instead of going to the muck of the internet, I'm just going to go to the Bar Association, okay, for Illinois. And this is why we should do this. You should go to verifiable references as opposed to blogs and websites, and because you can set up a website in like literally 5 minutes for under $10. And I am not exaggerating, okay? All right, so Illinois Bar Association, and we're doing very well on time. We're at 31 minutes, so I'm trying to be very mindful of our time here. It's very easy to identify the valid license of an attorney. I've suggested this to you all before. You can do the same thing, verifying the legitimacy of a business by using the North Carolina Secretary of State. These organizations or these the expansion of our government installments, like the judicial branch, these bar associations, they're there for this purpose, for you to go directly to them and to verify one's license. Now, if his license is no longer active, that does not mean that he's been disbarred. That could not be further from the truth. And I'm going to assert in distance and in scope. So farther and further, right? Someone's license can be inactive by choice, okay? Let's keep that in mind, all right? Okay, so let me go here, and generally they will have an option where you can just enter in the person's name. You don't need their birthday, you don't need their social security number, you don't need their address, and the bar will return the search based on what they have in their database, okay? So let's see. All right. So we're just going to put in Barack Obama. And search. Let's see, let's go back. Oh boy. Now I don't know if they would have changed anything. Let's see, Chicago. Okay, so I'm not finding anything here with the Illinois State Bar Association. Now I don't know if they've changed things because of the nature of, his presidency and security issues. I'm not really sure. Yeah, and I don't see anything for Michelle Obama either. So that may be, I would think that has a lot to do with their clearance, their security clearance at this point. Because usually the attorney's information would be readily available, like their residential address, oftentimes their telephone number, and their email address. Now be mindful, because I know some of you will use this information inappropriately. Don't do that, because then they would have very likely criminal relief against you. Okay, so be mindful on using these resources ethically. And that was my concern in even diving into this matter, because I didn't want to add to the sensationalism or add to the hype and the muck to go along with everything that has already been thrown on this fire, to ignite it further and have it be blown out of proportion. Okay, so what I'm getting at when trying to just search that out was just basically to let you know that he has to go through a very specific process. Okay, you don't need to know, we don't need to go through the step by step. Just understand that so I will just very quickly. He must apply to law school foremost. When we apply to schools, we have to provide identification, correct? Everyone knows that generally. And that's just not basal identification. Generally, universities have been doing criminal background checks, and that has been at the federal and statewide and countywide and citywide for many, many moons. I've undergone it at each level, not just at the undergraduate level for my bachelor's, but for every degree program to which I applied, I have had to undergo the criminal background check. There has been no option to be exempt or otherwise have that requirement waived at any point, okay? And he has attended some of the most prestigious schools here in the United States. PWIs, and nonetheless, they would have the same type of requirements, okay? All right, and of course, I've attended PWIs, but you can infer from what I'm saying that I've attended mostly HBCUs, okay? All right, let's see, or I shouldn't say mostly, because by number, I've attended more PWIs. By degree, I have finished my degrees and obtained my degrees from HBCUs. Okay, so here we go. All right. Not only does he have to go through that process, in order to take your first year examination as a law student, you must you must be admitted to the Bar Association for your respective state as a student. So then that's an entirely different set of criteria that one must undergo and pass successfully in order to continue their law school program. Then, after that, then you actually have to take the full bar, right? So you have the baby bar or the first year exam, and then you have the bar that would afford a license if passed, right? And then there is a requirement to verify good character and do another background check, okay? So each of these steps would have been a great opportunity for him to cure any issues with his immigration. And believe me, it would have come up. Because unless he's, I mean, honestly, y'all, unless he's an alien, and there would be, and I mean like alien, like from another planet. If he were an alien from another planet, that's where you could see maybe there would be these concerns of trying to make sure that the paperwork looks legitimate to us humans. But otherwise, that would, since he is human like most of us, or we assume that we're all human, right? And I'm being playful, but as a scientist, I try to not speak myself into a hole, because you never know. You just, it's possible. Is it likely? No, but everything's possible. All right. So the point I'm making is that as a fellow human, these are curing immigration issues, naturalization would be a simple undertaking for a law student, generally speaking, who has already resided here for quite some time, generally speaking, okay? And by the time he got to the Senate arena, it would have been something let's say that, because we talk about corruption all the time in government, and let's not even so much as call it corruption, but maybe, because some of you won't think of it as corruption, even though it is a form of corruption. It's a less severe form of corruption, but maybe kind of like the quid pro quo, on the lower scale of things. And you say, all right, well, hey, friend, I'm Obama, and I have still got some issues with my immigration. Help me out. I need to get this all worked out. And then you got one House representative says, okay, let me call a friend, and let me call to the Senate, and let me call the Speaker of the House, and let me pull some strings. Let me call over here to immigration. Let me do this. Let's get this paperwork. Let's expedite this. At the very least, there would have been an expediting of correcting his immigration issues if they were valid, if they really existed. Do you understand how ridiculous this is? So even and if you didn't realize this part, because this is the last thing we need to discuss here, and then we can move on to the things that are really more important for what we as Black America really need to be discussing. Okay? So I'll read it one more time. No person except a natural born citizen or a citizen of the United States or a naturalized citizen of the United States at the time of the adoption of this Constitution shall be eligible to the office of president. Neither shall any person be eligible to that office who shall not have attained to the age of 35 years and been 14 years a resident within the United States. Okay? So we know that he's been 14 years a resident of the United States. 14 years for someone pursuing a career as a legal professional, a licensed legal professional, is sufficient time to cure any immigration issues. And he doesn't, the law, the Constitution does not require him to have been born here. Boom. So that's the number one thing that really knocks this completely out of the water. And this doesn't mean that I'm like, an Obama worshiper, because I tell you guys, and they have, someone else came up with the term, I think it's very interesting, but I've been talking about it for years, because I've had to, unfortunately, signify that I did not announced that I was going to run for president one day because Obama became president. That is something that I knew and I asserted from my teenage years. And most of the people who know anything about me, and especially those who know a lot about me, they've known that for many moons. So that's nothing new at all. Most of them would have thought that I would be a licensed attorney by this point, and a judge, a seated judge at this point. But I understand where some of you are still working on this part of your life and your understanding. And you may hero worship is what this term has been coined. And so we have these individuals in the Black community, and I actually think that I also have been assigned the status of hero by certain communities, amongst Black America. And whereas I think that is beautiful, and I rock hard, and it is well deserved, the title. I still yet want you to understand my humanity. And that's why I'm always showing you my humanity, so that we don't get this twisted. Now, it will not change my disposition. Don't get it twisted. So my disposition is going to remain the same, but I don't need to be put on a pedestal as a hero. I want us all to be on the same level. We don't have to have the same education. We don't have to have the same upbringing. We don't have to have the exact same ideals, but I want us to be on the same damn page. Right? Okay. So, a lot of Black Americans were emotionally hurt by this, believing their hero, Obama, to not be, a citizen. Well, you guys, look at this, and you women, and, and all the other ways that you may identify. Look at this. Just take a moment and just look at the simplicity of it. It doesn't even require the person to be a natural born citizen. They can be naturalized. So the birth certificate conspiracy theory is just so null. Okay? All right. So we're done with that. I'm actually going to come out of that page altogether, because we've got more important things to discuss, and we've got 45 minutes to do so. And this is where we get really, really necessarily serious and in depth. I'm going to do my best, and we're going to move a bit quickly. All right. So I may do a part 2 to this, because it's a lot. And it may not necessarily be a part 2, and instead will be on reparations, okay? Because we're gonna handle Breonna Taylor, but I just wanted to touch upon what's his name? Bedros with a B. I am not certain about his ethnicity, but it appears that he identifies as having mixed heritage, and self-identifies as Black, okay? And I think that's beautiful. I'm not coming for his ethnicity at all. Please understand that, okay? But I am coming for what he said. And we do need to hold each other accountable. Remember, I have no intentions to denigrate, but we need to hold each other accountable in a loving way. And I believe that's how we need to really start addressing one another in a loving way, because we are different individuals. Even within our Black community, Black America, we have different perspectives. And that does not mean that we need to allow those different perspectives and belief systems to further divide us. We can come together upon that. Because remember, even in Africa, there are many different subcultures. We did not all originate from the same tribe, the same culture, the same country within Africa. Do you understand? Okay. All right. Okay, so here we go. All right, and I wrote them down. I ain't joking. I don't be joking about nothing. at all. Okay, so at first on the millennials, because we've ascribed this or attributed this to the millennials kind of thought process. I don't want to burst your bubble. I don't want you to feel any less empowered and emphatic in the things that you're doing with the protest. But please understand that we've been doing this for many, many moons. So that the one thing that I would like for to occur is for millennials to kind of get out of your emotional unintelligence with wanting to get credit for pushing for Black equity. It's not just your fight. You are not our representatives holistically. There are still yet some belief systems that you have either validly adopted or you have created out of the circumstances from your generation that may not hold true necessarily to generations before you, okay? And it doesn't mean that we can't still yet come together and build upon our collective and unified intent for a more perfect union. We're with you 1000%, but just don't, you got to stop with, oh, this is us and we've been doing this and this is what we're doing and nobody did anything for, no, it's not true. Folk like myself, we've been like hitting the ground hard, but a lot of times we weren't getting any support and people just looking at us side-eyed and crazy like, okay. And then oftentimes we were getting support and, but our relief and remedy was incremental, just the same way it's incremental now. It's been incremental. And this is nothing different. I don't want you to be discouraged by this. I don't want you to see this video as a millennial and say, oh gosh, it's Tigress. Tigress is, she's down. We know that. Generally people know, okay, she's down. And if she's saying that they've been doing it for years and decades, long before me, we know the history of civil rights. We know the history of the slave trade. We know, and we can infer that there were more Rosa Parks, maybe not to the same extent, that warranted big media and it becoming this big movement. But there were many other beautiful African Americans, diasporan African Americans who sought to organize protests, organize civil rights movements, organize incremental relief and remedy for our empowerment and equity. This was done repetitively. We are a very resilient culture, indeed. If there's nothing else that we should be proud of, is our resilience. Okay? All right. So it's not yours. It's ours. You need to we need to do this together. You can't do it alone because right now, the individuals in Congress, in this 116th Congress and the 117th Congress, they do not share your generation. And yes, we have AOC for you all generally, even though she's not a complete representation of every year for your, the categorization, if you will, for millennials. She, for the most part, and there's a few others in county, municipal government, there's pockets, hands full around the nation, but our core decision makers come from the prevailing law. And the prevailing law comes from Congress, not from the president. That's another thing that we're going to have a conversation on that. I told you we're going to do that. I think that's four topics down. And I hate that we can't have all these discussions all at once because but we're going to get there. We're going to get there and we're going to be on the same page. And I am trying to link up with everyone that I keep hearing that is on the same page. And I'm not trying to be a one-woman show. I'm trying to link up so we can be like transformers and come together and be more powerful together and impactful together than divided. Because I don't believe in the division. I'm not for the division at all. I'm not for the division within my beautiful Black community. I don't like it. I'm not with the division and the lack of understanding that some Latin Americans have about their heritage and as it relates to the African culture. But we're gonna do that in another topic. We're gonna talk about the diaspora. We're gonna have that topic soon. I thought my son is coming back and forth. I know he's interested in this conversation as well. Okay. Sean, can you please get me some more water, please? Asa, can you give me some more water, please? Okay. Thank you. Okay, I'm still going. I just need some water. I'm still live. All right. So, okay. I just wanted to get that out. So I still love you. If I was in front of you, I would give you all a hug. If it wasn't the coronavirus season, right? And that's no laughing matter, but you understand the playfulness there. I would give you a fist pound. He can say hello. Say hi. Hello. That's my handsome son, Asa. All right, and drink water. Remember, drink water. It's going to be good for all the things that we got to do. Drink that water. Drink that filtered water, baby. And drink it seated as much as you possibly can, okay? Not all at once. Don't try to take eight ounces times 8 all in one setting. Don't do that either, okay? That causes all kinds of health issues, gastrointestinal. All right. Okay, so, all right, we've covered that. Number 2. Here we go. And this may actually be 2 hours. Because I'm not going to leave until this is done. This needs to be done. We need to discuss all these. I got 30 minutes. I think I can do it, no problem. But still, here we are. Because I've got notes. And the notes are going to help me a lot. Okay. So the BLM. Everybody is debating about the BLM and their motive. And I've told you before, what I tend to do is, instead of just passing premature judgment, I keep files. And we've all generally learned that from your parents or some elder. We all have that. I'm not making up a new concept. You just don't come to a conclusion so fast. That's all I'm saying, right? Yes, we're concerned that it is mostly led by Caucasian people. Yes, we're concerned that it's mostly led by Caucasian male people. And that always seems to be the trap that we fall into, right? That circumvents any of our relief and remedy. Or, you know, how it takes us, when we get 2 steps forward, it takes us 5 steps back. Because they've already got this, you know, they've already infiltrated. They're already there from the beginning. So they have an anchor in whether or not our relief and remedy will be binding, you know, for future purposes, right? So I feel you. I'm there. This is how I'm with you 1,000%. And then some are concerned in the Black community. We have some of them are classifying themselves as Black conservatives. But I keep hearing that there is a sub-classification within the Black conservative self-identifying group that does not have a problem with the LGBTQ plus community. And then there are those Black conservatives who are, and I'm going to say the term, and I'm not saying it to be offensive, but they are hyper-religious. And so what comes with that, or what is inherent to that, is to believe LGBTQ plus lifestyle is a sin. Now, of course, you know, I can go into detail, and number one, we can just start with the most straightforward. Okay, so the last time I read the Bible, sin is sin, right? Sin is sin. No one sin is greater. There has been argument that murder is the greatest sin and all these things, but we're not talking about 2 groups that murder, right? We're not talking about a compare and contrast from the LGBTQ plus community and maybe other sins that maybe heterosexual Black men and women who would consider themselves conservatives, who are hyper religious and have a problem with the LGBTQ plus community. When you compare and contrast these two groups, maybe their sin is adultery, right? Or their sin is gluttony, or their sin is greed, or their sin, any number of things, right? Right? Because we have, maybe they've stolen and maybe they haven't been arrested, because we know that a lot of people haven't been arrested for their crimes. They haven't been caught yet, or may never ever get caught. Not ever, excuse me, get caught. I don't like saying never, right? Okay. I just think that it continues to divide us. And as a scientist, I find it very difficult to be arrogant with regards to knowledge of God and deciding what God wants, especially as it relates to a Bible that we know has been retranslated and altered intentionally for political reasons. Now, I know oftentimes people we say this and it's like chewing the cud, right? And people hear it, and then you show them proof of it, and even someone can come forward and admit to it, and then still yet we have a very significant population of Black America that will still go right back to antiquated thinking as it relates to this intentional chain of religion. Now, I'm not saying that we should not practice a form of religion. We should not practice a form of reverence to a God or a form of reverence to the earth. What I'm saying is that these particular denominations, these particular subsets, just don't sit well. Number two, let's talk about the reality that there should be a division between religion and state, right? Church and state. We don't see that yet. So why is it that we are still, as Black, beautiful Americans who come from a diverse continent full of subculture that was not predicated upon Christianity at all? Why do we continue to allow this religion, this very specific, very binding, it has such a force, such an emotional force upon Black America generally? Because of course there's a significant population of Black America who's not so bound by it. They may be church goers, they may self-identify as Christian, but they're not going to do it to the demise of their own culture and to the non-productive interactions betwixt us. Well, this is what's going on. I don't care if this person is transgender or they choose a same-sex lifestyle. If they're standing right beside me for Black equity and empowerment, and we're working together for that same effort, to make sure that we have rights, that we're working on reparations, I can't see the relevance in trying to be monomaniacally focused on the fact that they have a same-sex relationship. Makes no sense to me. Boom. And I'm considered one of the most intelligent, or amongst the intelligent population of the world. And I have considered all different religions. I've read all different religious texts, the Bible, the Quran, I've read Buddha texts, I've read Native American principle texts and the different deities that they worship. I've read Indian culture and different deities they worship. I've watched documentaries, and number one, sin is sin. So that should end all the argument right there. That should end all the argument. Why is this still an argument? If but not for religion and what has been misinterpreted from the Bible, or some of you may assert that it is properly interpreted from the Bible. I'm not going to argue that point. What I'm going to argue right now is that aside from that very specific reason, what else is your issue with individuals who are generally front and center 24/7 when it comes to Black rights? And we need everybody that we can get to be on our side and together with us, because we should not be gradating ourselves. You know how I feel about that. It's ridiculous. It is non-productive. It is destructive. It does not help us at all. Please stop it. Please stop it. And what do they say? Because I no longer self-identify as Christian. I am spiritual, and I believe that I can have a moral compass, a healthy and even above par moral compass, without having a preacher tell me and remind me to be a good person every day. I think I can handle it at 43 going forward. Now, that does not mean that I don't take advisement well from my mentors and advisors, and it doesn't mean that I am incapable of listening to my friends or my mom or my family members when they have something to share and tell me that maybe my thinking is not, productive, or maybe I could have chosen a different way to handle something character-wise. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying to you is that we should not have this division on the basis of something you have to understand academically is very, 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 very minimal. We should not allow that division on that basis. And again, from the mouth of Christians, you can colloquially catch more with honey, right? So if we're going to catch more with honey, I don't think that having a whole campaign running radio ads denigrating the Black LGBTQ plus communities is going to help at all. That's not honey. That's not honey. Basically going around and damning them yourselves and taking no responsibility for your own sin, because again, out of your Christian mouth, sin is sin. Out of your Christian Bible, sin is sin. So maybe we should work on the equity together, and then maybe have private conversations and really get to the bottom of what really is the issue that is dividing our Christian Black Americans, who would be completely volatile, violently against the LGBT community. Okay? All right. Voting Black and a Black contract. Okay, so this is the same. I had this conversation before. So the contract is not something that we're going to be able to successfully have. I think of Ice Cube as very, very vital to Black America. I think too many of us have forgotten the things that he's done for the forward movement and progressive movement and revolutionary movement of Black America. Now, that doesn't mean that people don't change and they sell out and all that kind of stuff, but I don't think that that's the case for Ice Cube. However, just as I tweeted, I would imagine that he has experts that are working behind him. And I was trying to figure out what licensed attorneys or what organizations, what legal groups were working with him behind the scenes, because this contract is not something that we can actually legally assert. We have no claim for relief upon that, because as this young lady pointed out, and I believe her name is Jade Arendelle. You can look her up, Jade, Jade Arendell. I agree with her 1,000%. She says we need to unify, and then we need to designate our population juxtaposed government standards and legal, statutory standards as a class of protected persons. So a class of protected persons, some of you are like, well, what does that mean? I'm not really sure I get that. Okay, so my son, you've heard me speak about him many times over. I consider me and my son to be a part of the vulnerable community. And that's because we have severe allergies, eosinophilic esophagitis. That's the condition that he has. And I have allergic asthma. Now mine, of course, is not bronchial, and I don't have asthma attacks and things of that nature. This is just a huge increase of eosinophils because of the hydrocodone that I took while I was pregnant with my son. Some of you know that I had a high-risk pregnancy, and that Tylenol intake, or that acetaminophen intake at that level has resulted in an inflammatory response, which is the increase in eosinophils. I'm currently working on it, and yes, I did figure all that stuff out. She's a scientist, yes. And I'm so thankful. Shout out to our specialists and doctors who have helped us along this journey and who have listened to me as I have sought to guide our medical treatment through this process, our diagnosis and treatment. Yes. Okay. And I'm so thankful also for my scientist colleagues out there who have put out wonderful research analysis upon which I have been able to work with our doctors and ascertain exactly what we have going on. Okay, but what I'm getting at is that that is a protected class of persons. Okay, just like the ADA. Okay, anyone who has, who is different abled, that is also a class of protected persons. I don't know what we wish to call it. I'm not going to suggest what we should call it. I'm open to it. I call it the Black diasporans. I believe that's sufficient. But I also recognize where there have been concerns that have been petitioned by millennials as it relates to individuals like myself. And that's another thing that we have to get on the same page about, where there is now this gradation of sorts that would seek to make me somehow not part of the Black community. Now, if I'm misunderstanding something, and I don't think that I am, but if I am misunderstanding something, I do want you to correct me, and I am open to you explaining exactly what this is, because I've not seen it in writing. I've only heard it at events and not have had opportunity to actually to dialogue with the individual. It was mainly at Black political events. And when you're a candidate, you have time constraints and all these things. And sometimes these individuals are not so willing to have a conversation with the candidates after it's over, because it's generally long already, because they're allowing for all the candidates to come through and, and give, have their time to address the group. And then sometimes it's intentionally, they just don't want to speak to you because they think that this is how you believe, right? Or this is who you are. So because I have also Native American heritage and Haitian, some would consider me not Black, or not black, as if there's a black designation. I try not to, be immediately offended by it, but I must tell you that it is definitely a jolt. That's what we'll call it. Okay. So when I speak of my heritage, my immediate mother and father, that genetic makeup is not 100% Native American nor 100% Haitian. And both of my parents, both of their lineage, or my lineage through them, paternal and maternal, is directly linked to slave ancestors. So it is not appropriate for you to classify all individuals who may have a diverse heritage like myself as not black. So we got to stop doing that. That's got to stop, okay? And I think it would lend well based on what Jade has suggested. And I've said the same thing many years ago, and she may have been saying the same thing, and from her realm. And we're now just kind of crossing paths just through the internet, the wonderful connector that the internet is. We need to identify ourselves as this class of protected persons. So this is what I'm getting at. Like, for instance, those who are descendants from the Jewish Holocaust, they have a class, they have had legally designated in the form of a corporation, a class of protected persons, and it's called, hold on, the Conference on Jewish Material Claims Against Germany, Inc., also known as the Jewish Claims Conference. And I would imagine that they have other clearly, legally defined populations. We are not clearly legally defined. And the more and more that we divide ourselves, I need you to understand that that serves the white supremacists and the anti-black unity, anti-black equity, anti-black empowerment groups. It serves them well, because that means that we're not together on the same page. And when we're over here and over here in these little pockets, we get this incremental relief, and it's not binding because it can be very easily rescinded in a court of law, especially where there aren't other groups to come behind, tag along to that group, and then establish more binding law from the precedential law afforded to the first group with their efforts in the court of law. Do you understand? I hope this is, again, I want to be impactful and not further divide. I hope you're feeling me. So we need this class of protected persons. The reason being is because this contract, we can't, so they're already lobbying laws. And there's an act, in fact, a disclosure act, and it's basically, driven by ethics to prevent and prohibit and deter corruption, right? And so lobbying in and of itself is politicking and almost trying to seek this legal contract with America. Hey, we need you to do this because this is what, this is the interest of the shareholders or the citizens of any particular, any respective state, any respective city. So they go to their politicians at the municipal level, at the state level, and they lobby, right? They lobby for their individual or collective interests. And then they try to seek to get some type of agreement or contract. That contract is only scantily binding because there's a whole government protocol in the system set up that disallows for a city to promise a group of persons who have not even been legally classified as a class of persons to be protected. That's number one. But to just promise them something in exchange for something else. That goes against fair elections. That goes against unethically driven decision making by city officials and state officials. and that's how it will be not defended. That's how it will be argued in a court of law. So it will be very, very difficult to get a contract done. So I understand what he's suggesting. And I do invite you to go over. We're going to read through it just a little bit. Here, give me a second. And we're at 12 minutes, and then we'll hit Breonna Taylor. I think I'm only going to go over 15 minutes. I think I'm doing pretty well. Okay, so, okay. And of course, he has it listed. All right, full contract. It's a 22-page contract. Now, what I would suggest, and I know someone's going to say, well, that's just nomenclature. That's just semantics. Okay, but in the court of law, semantics matters, people. It matters, okay? And this doesn't take away from the validity of what I think Ice Cube is intending, and what he's even saying that he's intending. Let's see. All right, so they've got some university professors behind him in Ohio for economics and urban policy, and rural development, as you know, is my scope in economics. So I've told you that I've got my equation for reparations, and I can tell you this: I am a little shocked that at no time has our discussion on reparations included loss of consortium. And loss of consortium is basically having the loss of your loved one, having the loss of having that relationship with them, and all the benefits that would come, inherently therefrom. Okay? Let's see. Love, affection, intimacy, wisdom, generational wisdom, all that stuff. Okay. I want you to go and check this out. I've checked it out myself. And of course, they do include reparations. They give a brief history of diaspora and African relevance. They're seeking, so they've got them kind of starred, and there's a star that appears by it. So here are the key things. And it's called A Contract with Black America Addressing Racial Inequality, okay? So they want Black opportunity and representation. They are asking for a student fund. They're even asking for a trust fund for babies born in a family with an income that would, I believe it says under 14,000, but basically poverty. Have these funds set up for those children to kind of, again, to achieve equity, not just equality, but equity, right? To eradicate gerrymandering, all right? So then number 2, massive bank lending and finance reform. They even talk about a home loan. I think that's next. Let me make sure if it's not in there. Yeah, a home loan. My concern with the home loan is that and I know, keep in mind that Ice Cube, one of the first things that he said is that this is not the end all be all. He intends this to be the beginning and the framework, and invites everyone to add to it and give their input so that it can be altered to be what we need to have as our contract that we present. And what I'm instead going to say semantically is that it should be presented as a treaty and not as a contract, because the contract's not going to work. It's going to be, and I can show you this we'll do this when we discuss the organizational structure of government, okay, and law. It will very likely, I don't care if it makes it from one jurisdiction to the higher jurisdiction, eventually it will not stand or it will come under attack regularly. And we want binding relief. We don't want it to be one of those things like Roe versus Wade where they come back and they try to circle back and take it off the books. That's not what you want, okay? So if we're going to be positioning for our equity and empowerment into perpetuity, then we need to do it in a very decisive manner, in a very deliberately strategic manner, and so that it is bindingly achieved. Okay. All right. That's what I was going to say. So and so I'm not denigrating when I'm adding my input because he's asked for that. So I don't want anyone to say, well, Tigress does not support Ice Cube. That is not true. That is completely a lie. That is not accurate. I tend to rock very hard with Ice Cube, and I believe that I believe that his intentions are great. The same way that I believe that Kanye's intentions are great. Is the delivery the best? Is the timing the best? Is the appearance the best? Maybe not, but it's difficult to do that because we're so divided. We got so many different subsets of us that it's like, oh yeah, no, oh we no, and then there's even more sub-imagined communities therefrom. We got to stop that. We got to just come together. We have commonality. We need to stay focused on that commonality. Okay, so all right, and so he says that he suggests. And I guess he and the professors, because I think we also need to make sure that we assign, if we're going to try to blame Ice Cube or assign him full responsibility and liability for proposing this, that's not fair because it appears that he has people that he's working with, okay? And it appears that he has, not to say that Ice Cube himself alone is not apt to orchestrate, and I mean that in a good way, to orchestrate this type of movement. I believe he is, but it appears that he has done his homework and that he's gotten professionals in respective related fields to assist to make sure that this can be something that is legitimately binding. Okay, so then number 2. All right, so so what he's talking about is he wants us to have a house, a home loan, right? I rock hard with that. I really appreciate that. But my biggest concern is that, much like what the millennials have been saying, and I know that some of you are going to be disappointed when you hear this, but it's they have a point in this regard. Okay, and I'm holding up the 2 because that's the points too, right? And then so we'll come back to that in a second. Millennials and BLM have petitioned for disbanding the police. When I first heard that, I thought that is a ridiculous notion. I thought, I'm a former federal ranger. I thought of all the human trafficking we saw, all of the immigration-related crime that we saw, all the drug trafficking we saw on the park sites, the murder investigations, the poaching, the domestic violence amongst park visitors, the conspired torts and crimes by fellow park rangers who were under investigation for their actions in the furtherance of crimes committed by those who were from other countries. And I thought to myself, now, crime is on the rise here in Charlotte. If we don't have our police, who I generally trust, and I'm saying generally, don't get it twisted because you've already heard my viewpoint on that as well. There are definitely some rogue cops. And I've gotten in their ass, okay? And I've done it top level and I've done it directly in their face and they know it. They'll tell you that they know exactly who I am, okay? But my biggest concern is how will we be able to manage, deter, prevent, and respond to crime if we don't have a police force? So yes, your first notion when someone says, well, we're going to get rid of the police or even defund the police, because even defunding the police, I know some people are like, well, no, we just mean defund. And then we're going to have a, when they begin to explain, we want checks and balances. We want there to be policing, but not by the standards that have come about, that have resulted in the murdering of our beautiful Black people, right? So that you understand. And come on, y'all. Let's not take emotion and go completely left field. Let's make some sense out of this, right? And if someone like myself, and you've even heard some other officers come forward, and I've explained this before. I'm a former federal ranger who worked alongside a border patrol. And so, whereas my specific classification was not law enforcement, my duties were law enforcement. And that was on both parks, Shenandoah National Park and Oregon Pipe Cactus National Monument. So I know what I'm talking about. And believe me, just like you've heard other officers or legal professionals say, licensed or support staff, good officers, we equally have a disdain and don't like bad officers because they bring the respect and the regard and the integrity of the entire operation down, and they can't be trusted, and they are dangerous for even their own colleagues. Because if they're out there moving corruptly, that exposes the good cops to that danger from whomever would seek to do them harm in a retaliatory manner. And that doesn't help. Look at the individuals. Lord goodness, we don't want people to just be killed. There was the officers that were killed that were just in their vehicles. Now, I know some of us don't believe for eye for an eye. You don't believe in the death penalty and things of that nature. But I must say that it doesn't. To enforce against police brutality by imposing administrative penalties is clearly not an apt deterrent for those rogue cops because they keep killing beautiful Black people. Maybe if their level of liability and criminal punishment were on par with citizens, lay people, maybe it would be a good deterrent. So I'm 1,000% on that as well. I understand where the concern would come from on the opposite side, on the side of the officers, where they're like, well, how can we do our job without having in the back and the front of our mind that if we make a mistake, that we could be charged criminally and punished criminally to the same extent as lay people and not have any immunity at all or any type of mitigation of our charges or punishment because we made a mistake. Now, this is the logic from that side. I'm giving you both because I'm telling you, I can tell you both perspectives. And what you've heard me say, if you've been in political events with me, you've heard me get into their face and say, look, You may be a good guy, but the officer beside you may not be. And it may not have been a mistake for him. He may have had the forethought, because the immunity for the corrupt mind provides an opportunity for them to plan, to premeditate, to carry out murder, knowing that they are carrying out murder. They know full well that they're carrying out murder, but they will have full opportunity and legal right to assert and defend themselves under that immunity. And then suggest, knowing that they're lying, that they had no intentions to murder that person. They went through all the protocol, they went through all the steps, and the person wasn't complying until they took this action. It's a tough one. But okay. So on the notion of the home loan, okay, great. So we get the home loan. Sounds like a good idea, but. This is what I was talking about. It has to be binding. The relief has to be binding. And my biggest concern is on example. We have to use the examples in law. And this is why I told you, and I'm a big proponent now that they are opening up membership or subscriptions to everyday citizens. And I'm talking about LexisNexis. I believe very strongly that you should get yourself a subscription. If you're not a law student, or you're not one of the qualifying persons, again, class of qualifying persons who are eligible for an account, then go through and just set up a regular account. I don't know the cost because, of course, I have mine through education or whatever. But please do. And you can look it up. You can look up not only the subscription, but what I'm referring to more specifically is you can look up cases and cases and cases of precedent, statutory precedent, or decisions, and the reasoning behind those decisions, legal reasoning, and really ascertain what's going on. How are these decisions being made? Why? And when I tell you this and I say, okay, well, home loans, and if we're going to have this contract and even the treaty, it's still yet scantily binding because Native Americans have had hundreds of treaties with the United States, and hundreds of them have been violated multiple times. Even to this day, I saw an action here as recent as 2015. And I would imagine that there's more in 2019, maybe some right now that just have not made it to this level or to this level of court, this jurisdiction where they would actually appear in the LexisNexis record. And so here is my concern. They've had treaties to designate lands for Native Americans, designate fish and wildlife reservoirs for protection, designate just for all different types of reasons. All the things that we're asking for in the treaties, asking for in our reparations and in this contract that Ice Cube is proposing with, the others that are working with him. And they have violated it multiple times, repeatedly. There are lawsuits. I know that we're upset about our position, our disposition, our position in America. Like we don't have a place. We don't know for certain what tribe. Most of us don't know that. We don't know what specific tribe from which we originate. We are not familiar with our native land except for what we see in books and on TV. And the misrepresentation of beautiful Africa that we've seen over and over again. because it's not the majority, it's just the minority of different areas that are rural. Just like we have rural, impoverished areas here. So my concern is that if they give us a house by way of this loan, what happens 2 years later? Because it's a loan. It's not, you don't get the house. It's not and so my suggestion would be something like we get the house, we get the land. My suggestion would be we get the land, that we should get the 40 acres and a mule. Because the land economically is the most viable asset. And you all understand that. I don't think I have to explain that even to the millennials. We know why the land is the most important asset. Because it's generally the person who owns the land is different from the person who owns the buildings thereupon. And so who has the prevailing authority? When the United States, now there are states that are tenant favored, and there's some agricultural principles in law that tend to favor the tenant. But generally, the United States as a whole is landlord favored. So that concerns me. And even where it would not be a U.S. effort, like a U.S. government effort, I could see it being a bank effort through, those who are against us, white supremacists in the big banks. Because if it's a loan, then it's going through a bank. And what if 2 years later they figure out how to circumvent the treaty, the stipulations in the treaty, the stipulations in this contract, if we were to get it affected, and they figure out a way to rip the houses right from underneath us because they own the land. Or if we get the land, how to figure out how to rescind our contracts, or how to figure out how to increase our premiums, increase our mortgage rates or increase our finance. I don't know, but we've seen things like this because we've seen foreclosures. And normally the remedies have only been after the fact. And then they would put us right back at square one. And it would be so discouraging and so damaging emotionally for too many of our beautiful Black Americans. Okay? And Lord have mercy, I'm telling you, it's so much. Okay, and then we're doing good though. And then we're going to talk about Breonna Taylor. So let's go through this real quick. All right, so then he says judicial and public policy reform. You've heard me already talk about that. Constitutional amendment codifying expansion of the 13th Amendment by the courts. Okay, and this is of course for prison reform, right? All right. Police reform. We know all of how much we want police reform. Entertainment industry reform and reparations. Monuments and institutions. We get that. Black Americans' responsibility. Chronic poverty. And I'm going to read this because I think this is a wonderful summative statement. Chronic poverty creates an atmosphere full of negativity, frustration, hopelessness, depression, alcoholism, drug abuse, crime, and violence. This is exactly what I'm talking about. And if we can't get this to be binding, it will be just another crushing blow, and it will take us, not all of us, because again, I've said just how beautifully resilient we are, but it will be damaging to too many of us in exactly the regard that they're speaking. All right, so there you go. And the marketing of neo-reconstruction. Tell you. And this is as opposed to being disenfranchised. This is a period, 1867, 1877, where we became enfranchised. You can think of it as like Black Wall Street and things of that nature. Okay. And then, of course, we know the Jim Crow and systemic racism, kind of blew that out of the water. Okay. So that's the stuff that Ice Cube is on. I don't see no problem with that. And I pointed out the other day to someone I was conversing, with whom I was conversing, because I said, now, did you hear that Trump is out here suggesting that Ice Cube has already signed a contract and they're working on it together, all this nonsense? See, that's where the BFery comes into play. That's where the buffoonery and the other one that rhymes with duck, the beduckery, comes into play. Because Ice Cube has not done any of that, nor is anyone on his team. And I'm just colloquially using team because I'm not trying to minimize the efficacy of the group that they have put together to even put this contract together. So I think it's beautiful. We should not be naysayers of it. Yet there are lots of legalities that are at the forefront of this. I believe that, like I said before, we need to have a class of protected persons, because then that allows for us to have a legal action and a claim for relief. And then we need to make sure that we research all previous treaties by Native Americans, all previous treaties by any other protected class of persons, and then use those to compose our contract and use case law to substantiate our Black treaty or Black diasporan treaty. And again, I believe that it should include reparations. It should include a relief in the form of loss of consortium. And that's also related to the psychological impact that we have all sustained generationally and escalatedly, compoundedly. And I don't believe that we should negate that. It was included effectually in some of the Jewish reparations and Chinese reparations for their internment. And even where it may not have been by name specifically, it was still yet most likely in pain and suffering. I've not seen the actual, because again, even LexisNexis provides you a summative. You get a brief, you get the kind of high level points of it all. But I think it will be best served upon us if we do our research and we hit this with legal efficacy, as opposed to what they just see us as anyway, is just kind of beggars at the table. I just want some oatmeal. And I feel like I should have raisins in my oatmeal. That's all they see us as, and we got to stop. We need to approach them eye to eye, efficacious to obfuscation. Okay? All right. So, woo! And then here's another just side note. Keep in mind also that the original contract, if we're going to talk about making a contract with the United States on Black equity, the original contracts were established between Great Britain and their subjects, their contractors, if you will, that they sent out, like Columbus, to go and explore and find lands and claim lands and expand their kingdom. That's where the first contract would come from, or originated. And that would be a whole nother conversation, friends. A whole nother conversation. Okay, so good gracious. Yeah, this is Woohoo! I think I am. I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna have to do Breonna Taylor on another time because I only have 10 minutes, and I want to spend this 10 minutes on Bedros, Keuilian. I didn't get off topic. I discussed everything that I wish to discuss, and that's the beauty of being the organizer and facilitator of Evolve Weekly, is that we do generally have the time to do it at a in another session, and I do want to dive in pretty deeply in the Breonna Taylor matter. Even more so than I have time now. And I had considered already making it another, like a part two. And then other things came up. I was not expecting Ice Cube's contract, of course. So I just felt like that took precedence. And even though, of course, don't get it twisted. When I say precedence, I don't mean importance, because Breonna Taylor is infinitely important. Infinitely important. Let me repeat that, infinitely important. And then we have the election right now, and I know that some of you are listening to Bedros, and so I would be remiss if I didn't stand in the gap, because the gap is the area of indecision for Black America. Who do we vote for? Do we vote for Trump or do we vote for Biden? And hearing Bedros speak, I was so concerned. I was so concerned as an economist at the doctoral level, in just how much he misunderstands principles of economics. I was concerned that he would suggest, as has been suggested before, as some type of substantiation for voting for Trump, that we loved him before, quote unquote, referring to Black America. So why not now? I was concerned that he was sharing this information with his fellow Black men. The reason being is because, and I'm going to say this generally, because this is not in a way to divide, but we have to be real with ourselves. We have had some issues with unity between Black men and Black women. So Black women know that we generally are more impactful with our own gender and race. So we know we're most impactful with other Black women. Equally, Black men know that they are most impactful upon other Black men. So therein lies my concern, that he would use his position, his sudden fame, on the basis of comments that I've made, that he's repeated, regurgitated even, and other statements that other people have made. And I told you in the previous video what he did regurgitate. And ironically enough, he regurgitated even more so that of my 10-year-old son, who spoke very vehemently and passionately about the fact that he didn't, and this is Asa's own words, and you can look back in our archives, Asa did not like the fact that we were seeing and hearing about murder in Chicago, kids his age and younger being shot by stray bullets from gunfire by gangs and whomever else, but knowingly African American individuals, amidst this fight for America to see us and value us through the Black Lives Matter movement and protests that we've seen and come to become familiar with during the pandemic. to see my 10-year-old and hear him speak this way, knowing that he is taking what mommy and grandma have fed and poured into his life. And he's able to rationalize the things around him. And this 10-year-old knew that there was something fundamentally wrong with the fact that we see protests, and mommy says, okay, generally the protests, we rock hard with the protesters, even though we can't be out there, because mommy would be out there. She would be out there, but she's in here with me because I'm most important. He knows he's my priority, and he's a part of the vulnerable community. Otherwise, he and my mom, they both know that I would be out there. So for him to say, wait, I see this, but mommy, why are beautiful black people killing beautiful black people? And kids my age and younger, what did the kids do? How do you explain that to your child? So for Bedros to take these things and assert them, number one, is his own thought, his own original thought. When this original thought was inspired by myself, my teachings from my mother and my father, and my mother foremost. Not just like my dad, but some of you know the story, and that'll be for a different time. And then him rationalizing what he's seen and understood from us, what we taught him. And that this grown man would then take this, and I'm not denigrating, but that you would take this information, purported to be your original thought, number one, and then use your fame to then further divide Black America and use it as some form of encouragement to other Black men to even consider voting for Trump. Now, I agree with Black America. I'm on the same page with you. We don't have the best candidates. We don't. But I've been telling you that. We don't have the best candidates. I've been telling you for years that you're in a bad marriage. And I effectually am in that bad marriage, by relation. Like it's my in-laws. And I keep telling y'all, look, you need to leave that man. You need to leave that man. You need to leave that woman. I keep saying it, but y'all, we love Clinton. We love Clinton. I want to stay married to Clinton. He's the first Black player as a president. I love him. 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 Ooh, I love him. I love him. And then you pull up the archives, and the millennials are on point in this regard. This is where I'm like, yes, fist pump. Because y'all are pulling up stuff on a regular basis. Like, look at this. Did you know that this song was really racially motivated? And I've been saying that stuff for years. I would tell people, no, don't do this. Don't the picnic and all these different terms and stuff and different concepts that we've grown to kind of include and take into our culture and then I'm trying to say, hey, I can't really rock with that. I love you from a distance. But yeah, that's some racial BS right there, and you should look it up. Nah, Tigress, you so extra. We don't have to be so militant about everything. Well, look where we at now. Look where we at now, friends. So Bedros, let's give credit to the little guy. Let's give credit to Asa. Okay, that's number one. Let's give credit to the 10-year-old. This is not your original thought. That's number one. Okay. And less than just the giving credit to my son, more importantly, let's keep in mind that you are a great influence on other Black men. And if I were in the room, unfortunately, as someone who is stereotyped as the the quintessential independent woman, even though that's not, the people who know me know that that is not my core at all. Not the stereotypical, I am Miss Independent, I don't need a man, I got this, and I hate black men. No, I'm so far from that, it is not even funny. But so I'm concerned that if we were in the same room, that I would be shut down so quickly just on my gender, my gender and my race. I mean, because you know what I mean. We share the race, but Bedros, number one, the economy is not doing well. And I'm not saying these things because I hope that you will see this. I hope that you do not feel denigrated by this. My intentions are not to denigrate. My intentions are to say, I don't know if you're one of the individuals who is receiving some form of payment or something in exchange for confusing Black America as to whom they should vote, right? Or for whom they should vote. And I hope you don't take it offensive that I'm saying this. I don't know you personally. So from the outside looking in, these are safe conclusions to draw based on the information that is readily available to me. Maybe you didn't realize, maybe you thought it was your original thought. That's possible. It's very possible, but unlikely, especially considering just how out front and public me and my son are, and how even though his message did not go viral, as most of my things do not show numbers virally in the same way that maybe other individuals would show. But you all know, I've talked to you about this as well, that my impressions and the viewership is high. Thousands, 20,000, 40,000. You've seen it with the votes that I've received as well. But I have a lot of naysayers because they know what I stand for. And they also know that I am completely detached from the status quo. I'm self-employed. I don't take scholarships generally. I don't take the scholarships that would require some type of commitment. You know what I mean? Like I've taken small book scholarships of like $300 here and there over, I think I've taken maybe two in my 3 degrees, near 4 degrees at this juncture. I haven't joined any sororities. I dropped the line as a sorority to maintain this complete neutrality, knowing that I was going to run for office. In fact, I was considering honor society again, and my mom, funny enough, she was like, I thought you said you're not doing that. And I was like, boom. And this is a woman who still has her full mental capacity, just beautifully so. And we hadn't even talked about that, and she caught me quick. No, I thought you said, say, interesting. Boom. But Bedros, I hope that you have at least a basal respect for academia. And even where you don't have a basal respect for academia, I hope that you have a respect for generational entrepreneurship. So either way, if we take all of my academia and we put it in the trash, I'm a 3rd generation entrepreneur. So economics is how I cut my teeth, okay? And the economy is not doing well at all. We can go into the specifics of that. We have an issue where we are losing the middle class altogether, and you have either hyper wealth and a very quickly emerging hyper impoverished community. And the hyper impoverished community is becoming, the middle class has sunken into this impoverished community. You likely are supposing that the commerce activity that you see of maybe your friends and family and what you see on the internet, a lot of this is facade. Recall that there still is a Black Thursday, or what? No, sorry, Black Friday. The Black Fridays exist on the sole basis of the retail stores, car dealerships getting out of the red. This company, and I didn't misspeak, but this country is built on debt. America is not economically viable, not at this juncture. And that doesn't mean that we're not sitting in all of our luxuries and enjoying all of our conveniences. This is all predicated upon debt. And it's very, very volatile. And not only volatile, the market is temperamental. And it's highly impacted by that gap that I just spoke about. And so the commercial activity that you see amongst the lower middle class, that's pacification. That's consumer psychology. We're going through something very traumatic, so let's shop as therapy. We have nothing else to do. Let's shop as therapy. We don't have enough to pay our bills, but we have $200. So let's shop and try to make the best. Let's live it up. Let's get some beer. Let's get some wine. Let's get some good food and try to make ourselves feel better during this time. That is not an indication, however, of a booming economy. Okay. So, and I want to reiterate, and you can look very finitely. He said something also about the fact that he doesn't believe that Trump is a racist, and he believes that this is some new assertion just to keep us confused and to carry out steps in the furtherance of a plan by Republicans to keep dumb Black people voting Democrat for years. No. The biggest issue between the Republican and Democratic debate for Black America is rooted in our freedom, our literal freedoms. There has been so much fear instilled in every arena: the prisons, the judicial system, the welfare system, healthcare system, especially where we would be predisposed to a lot more health complications. All of these arenas keep us at the Democratic teat. Black America doesn't necessarily want to be at the Democratic teat. However, the Democratic appeal comes from at least our basal freedoms and protections will be upheld. Even though we know generally, we all do know generally, that the democratic principles are really not helping us as far as the empowerment and legacy that we seek. But there's too many in the Republican Party that are questionable as it relates to our general freedoms. And none of us want to go back into slavery. And so that goes back to the emotional intelligence and that fear tactics in politics. And then that religion. Religion is also a very more so democratic principle. You see, even conservatives find themselves leaning more toward democratic principles, even though that is traditionally a Republican principle. And we understand that because we know, just as Martin Luther King has taught and Malcolm X and the Honorable Farrakhan and so many others, and suggested by myself as well, a little humble old me, that when you go after one type of our freedom, that our other freedoms will not be far behind under attack. So even where conservatives would want to lean Republican, they would instead assume the disposition of a Democrat to ensure that they don't take the freedoms of maybe like the LGBT community, because they know if they take those freedoms, they will incrementally ensure that our other freedoms that we are trying to push back on and ensure that they are long lasting into perpetuity, they would begin to chip and wear away at those as well. You see what they're doing with Roe versus Wade. That enough should be sufficient for you, Bedros, to understand that we cannot have Trump in office. So yes, we do, unfortunately, and begrudgingly vote Biden into office and Kamala into office because we can at least rest assured that our basal freedoms will remain in place. Okay? So Bedros, I'm here. And again, I'm not denigrating. So if you want to put out a video and you think this is like some type of sensational, blog-worthy clap back, I'm not going to clap because it's ridiculous. And I'm me. So it wouldn't be an apt clap back. And I'm not trying to be funny, but you know, this is not, it wouldn't be a fair fight. And I don't want to get to the point where I have to say things that really rip away from your manhood or from your viability or what your self-worth. So I ask that you speak to me in a respectful manner, and I'll engage you in the same way. But if you are being paid to do this, we humbly ask you to stop, and we see you. If you are not being paid to do this, I humbly ask that you have a conversation with me so we can get on the same page and ensure that we are working toward the same goal, which is our commonality that I'm always talking about. Now, some may try to use against me, and this will be the last thing that I talk about, and then we'll do Breonna Taylor next. And I mean in the next video, because I've gone 2 hours and 11 minutes, but it was very necessary. In the last election, I voted for Dr. Jill Stein and Ajamu Baraka. I thought they were the dream team. They were Green Party candidates. I have fluctuated between independent status and Democrat. I've explained even where there have been Republicans that have tried to pull me over because they feel that I'm a great candidate for their side. But I'm not an idiot at all. And I would not even assume a disposition that would somehow even give the appearance that I don't love my beautiful Black people. I thought, assuredly, Ajamu was an absolute no-brainer for us in office. Even more so, and I know some of you may not agree, but understand the logic, even more so than Obama, because Ajamu had a long history of civil rights activism, and aggressively and successfully so. He was not reserved. Even though he is reserved in demeanor, he was Angela Davis. He was himself. I don't want to just compare. For those of you who don't have an understanding, he was John Lewis. He was Malcolm X. He was Martin Luther King. He was all these people rolled into one. And they had a huge plan for our environmental sustainability in the future. So for me, it was a no-brainer. Now, I'm saying this only to say that just in case you say, oh, well, let me look her up and see, oh, well, she was one of the ones that split the vote last go round. And so how can she talk because she messed it up for us and she got Trump elected? No, I didn't get Trump elected. I will not assume that disposition if it is superimposed upon me. And I've spoken out about this over and over again. And I've been under fire for people concerned and thinking that they could take my black card. You see, I have a black card. I've had it since birth. My Black Panther Party daddy gave it to me. And positively so. You know, we have so many misconceptions of the Black Panther Party. But nonetheless, the vote was divided because too many didn't come out and vote. They were on our ballot. We could have voted for them collectively and in great numbers. We had our opportunity. We had really great candidates for office. What we are always talking about, what we want to see as candidates in office. Dr. Jill Stein and Ajumu, Baraka were it. I don't like denigrating other women, so I'm not going to say anything mean about Hillary Clinton, but I do not believe that she was a good fit for our presidency. And I assuredly was not voting for Trump because he's done exactly what I said he would do. He would be more focused on his ego and sensationalism and running it like a TV show. And now everyone is chiming in and saying that's what he's doing. I said that he would make side deals with other countries and he would put on a facade of some type of great international relations. And he has. He's done everything. I'm even going to suggest that there's a great likelihood that he did not contract the coronavirus and that he's lying about that. He's got a great history of concerted lies and conspiring lies with those individuals who can carry out steps in the furtherance of his deceit. So it is likely, I don't have substantiation, but it is more likely that that's the case than not. And even where he may have contracted the coronavirus, I've also said very clearly to you all that he has near unlimited resources as president. And so similar to the medical treatment that celebrities received and high-profile individuals in this nation, he would receive the top-of-the-line care. Even where there is no viable vaccine. Because the virus, and you all know that I know this scientifically, can be inactivated by holistic medicine as well. So if they gave him a vitamin B12 drip or something to that effect, he could very well come out feeling like the superhero that he felt and asserted. Okay? So I'm done. And I guess you can tell I was very passionate about everything that I talked about today because, again, I went straight through 2 hours and 20 minutes. If you do not understand how much I care about the Black community from this session, I'm not sure that I would be able to best communicate with you in another way. I would need maybe a different language, I guess. And whereas I am semi-fluent in Spanish, I don't think that's going to help us. So I love you. I sincerely do, even Bedros, but I will not co-sign your nonsense. I will not. We need to come together. This is a cry that has been made before me and the generations even before that, going all the way back to Harriet Tubman and further. I don't want to be in 2030 with my adult son talking about the same issues. I lay my gifts at your feet. I'll run in the next election. I'm not sure for what seat. And I will see you next week on Sunday at 4 p.m. for Evolve Weekly. May I further impact instead of further divide. See, we evolve. Every victory for one lends victory to everyone. Have a good night.